Is it an allergy or is it a conflict shock? Today I was looking at my Facebook, and I'm a member of a lot of natural holistic parenting and groups on Facebook. And in one of them, a young woman, first-time mother, posted a picture of her baby, and her baby had a rash all over the side of his face and his neck. And so she posts on there asking, what could this be? And looking for advice from other parents, other mothers, with their opinions and suggestions on what she might do to help her baby with this rash. And like you might expect, there were a lot of comments, and most of them had to do with food. Cut out dairy, cut out garlic, cut out, this, that, or the other thing, and give that a try because it really helped my baby when I cut out a certain food. So this baby's 4 weeks old. She said exclusively breastfed. And so those are the typical reasons that someone might think that a baby would get a rash, that there's a food that you're eating that irritates the baby's system, and then the baby breaks out in something. But from the German New Medicine perspective, we know that when the body has symptoms, it's due to some sort of conflict. And the conflict that has to do with the skin, specifically the epidermis, there's also the corium skin, which is like the deep underneath part of your skin. But today we're just going to talk about the epidermis when it comes to separation regarding a baby with some type of rash. And so at 4 weeks old, you got to remember, so there was constant contact between mother and baby for, 40 to 42 weeks while the baby was in utero. And then as soon as the baby gets out into the outside world, it is vulnerable to separation from its mother. And it's extremely important during the early months of your child's life to be in constant contact with that baby, because a baby doesn't have the mental capacity to understand separation. They don't even know truly that when you are gone from them that you still exist. It's called object permanence, and they don't develop that for a couple of months. And so it's very important when your baby is very young that you keep a pretty steady, stable environment. Any alteration to this constant contact, any kind of separation, even if for you're not gone, it's not like you went on a vacation or you left the baby for, even a few hours, you're in the house with them. But if you change the amount of skin-to-skin contact, let's say that you want to start pumping, or you're prepping perhaps to go to work, in a few weeks, and you want to get the baby used to the bottle because, there's the whole notion of nipple confusion. And if some people say if you get the baby used to using a bottle and drinking breast milk from a bottle, that they will adapt to it better. So some mothers may go ahead and just try to do that in preparation. But you got to think from the baby's perspective. If the baby's only ever had its whole face pressed up against your breast for feeding, how even just one feeding of a bottle might trigger within that baby, within their biology, a separation conflict. And so when someone experiences a separation conflict, what happens is the skin itself, there are small erosions in the skin. And then once the healing has taken place, once the conflict is resolved, once the baby gets back on the breast or is being held again, a rash, it's a healing rash. All rashes, when there's inflammation, when it's red, when it's painful, that means that you are in the healing phase of a separation conflict. That means that you've already resolved something. So there can be associations, say, with a food item. But it's the reason the association is there is because the baby associates this food item with a separation. And that's why dairy can be a big trigger for a baby, because once they are given a bottle with formula, with some type of dairy derivative in the formula, they associate, it's not the dairy that causes the rash. I hope you see that. It's the separation that they are subjectively experiencing as the problem, and that is inducing the rash. And so with the separation, it could be a lot of different things. It could be not being able to touch you, being sent to someone else's home where they're not being held as much. Separation could also be wanting to separate from something, and so that's why diaper rash is a very frequent thing, wanting to separate from this wet diaper. You want it away from you, and so that may result in a rash. And so it's just this different way of understanding why the body is doing what it's doing. It doesn't just arbitrarily choose to, reject this or that food, and then have a rash and that you have this allergic reaction, that is a misconception. That is the old medicine, that's the old way of thinking. But with German New Medicine, we know that when there's symptoms, there was a conflict. And with skin, it's some type of separation conflict. So I hope that was helpful for you to keep in mind, if your child develops some type of rash. And that's why, there's all sorts of weird mystery rashes that infants and babies and kids get all throughout their childhood. That's what we call infectious disease. I'm not going to go too much into that today, but just know that all of these inflammatory, rashy things that kids get, they have to do with separation conflicts. And so it's just a new way of looking at things, and it's extremely helpful to realize that it's not necessarily a bug, a germ, a virus, an allergy, but it truly is how that child is subjectively experiencing the world around them, and how separation is a very scary thing, and it triggers something deep within us evolutionarily, because what are we programmed for? Survival. And we want to survive and we want to live, and for the maximum living and survival, it's being close to those that we love, especially our parents early on. So if you like this video, please share it. Please leave me a comment, ask a question. Consider supporting me on my Patreon page, GNM Tutor, where you can learn so much more detail about German New Medicine. So thanks again.